Pleasure and honor to talk to the young engineers. Thank you, faculty members, um, actually, and the director facilities to conduct this session. Um, I was looking forward to have a word with some of the upcoming engineers and share my experiences with everybody on how you can all get ready for the industry when you finish your graduation. So I would like to begin the presentation. The topic today I chose is to introduce you all with the basics of cloud computing and what is the need for the cloud products which are in the market, and how can you leverage um, and be ready before you finish your graduation. So just to um, set the agenda, I will be introducing myself, and then um, um, we will discuss the basics of the cloud computing. I will also take your questions at the end, and I'll try to answer what you can do to get yourself ready for the industry, and some of the tips and tricks that I have picked up throughout my experience. So first thing first, I have overall 9 years of experience in different sectors of IT. I have been primarily engaged on the server infrastructure side. I haven't got much hands-on on the development and coding part. So I picked the direction of the server infrastructures and helping the developers build the code. So I look after the servers, the networks, helping the companies with coming up the solutions to maintain highly available environments and things like that. So I started my career after my graduation from the Ishwachan Vidyasagar Institute of Technology in Mathura in 2012. I was lucky enough to get into a company called Convergys, which is now taken over by Concentrix. It is a KPO, which has the processes from various technical companies. So the process I got into was from Microsoft. And at that time, fortunately, Windows 8 was coming up. That was the next big thing. Um, and I got into the pilot project, or the pilot launch of the Windows 8 support team. So my initial role was the support engineer, and as the process grew, I went on to become an escalation engineer pretty quickly there. And right after Windows 8 launch, Microsoft came up with Office 2013. And again, it was a big change from the earlier products Microsoft had in Office. This new version was coming up after the 3 years gap. The licensing model had changed, pretty new features had came up. If you today see the difference between Office 2010 and Office 2013, it's pretty huge, right? So I again got a chance to be in the early teams who were supporting Microsoft's customer. And these customers were primarily the domestic customers or the office users who were having issues with Windows 8 or Office 2013 products. And I worked as escalation in both these products, as not just in India, but I was a global escalation point of contact for all the other tier 1 and tier 2 customers all over the globe that Microsoft had. From there, I went on to join a company called Gemalto, and Gemalto is one of the leading manufacturers of the chips that you see right behind your SIM card. It is a security company. It comes with many enterprise grade software encryption and cryptographic solutions. And I spent some time there, learned a thing or two about cryptography, encryption, and security, and overall how companies secure their environments on different layers. From there on, I went on to join Microsoft itself, where I spent time in different teams. I worked in backup and disaster recovery solutions team. I work in the Azure platforms team. Azure is a Microsoft cloud offering, much like Amazon has its AWS cloud platform. So because my primary experience has been on Microsoft and Microsoft products, I would be talking about Microsoft Azure towards the end of the presentation. But the concepts that we are going to discuss today are basically cloud agnostic, meaning that you could uh, use the same concepts or fundamentals from one cloud to another. So the basics remain the same. I'm currently working with a company called Lab3 in Microsoft stack of technology and products. I am looking after two banking clients, which are upcoming banks, or what we call as neobanks. Neobanks are nothing but all digital, all cloud-based banking solutions, which mean that you don't have to go and visit the banking office itself, and you have an app, you have an interface where you can upload your IDs, and the banking is easy. So that's the concept of neobanks. So in Australia, I have worked with some government organizations, some not-for-profit organizations, and this gave me a chance to look at different kind of IT environments, different kind of hardware setups, software deployment technologies, and things like that. So during the course of presentation, I will try to use this experience that I acquired over the years, and kind of relate back to the concepts of the cloud computing that we are going to discuss. So I hope the session would be interesting, and I look forward to your interesting questions toward the end of the presentation. So that's enough about me. Now, before we begin, I want you to imagine a startup company who has a brilliant idea, and they just want to deliver the product into the market. So what you see on the screen is a dummy organizational hierarchy, and the idea is brilliant, the investors are ready, and the startup is started. Now, before we go any further, what we are going to do is we are going to compare the traditional way of doing things and the way to do things in today's age, in the era of cloud computing. Um, so now, when the product is being developed, earlier, what we used to have was something called waterfall model, which means that waterfall, right? It's a vertical drop. So which means everything would happen, in the.
Abhijeet, Abhijeet sir, sorry for interruption. Would you can you share your screen? Actually, your screen is not visible.
Oh, my bad. I thought I was sharing my screen.
Yes. Oh, that is why I'm again asking. Please share your screen.
One moment. I hope you can see it now.
Yes, I think it's coming. Yes, okay.
All right. On the
Okay.
previous screen, it was
Yeah.
nothing
Okay.
but about my experience. You haven't missed anything important. So
No, no.
let's talk about this company called Contesso. It's a startup, a hypothetical company, and in this team, as you can see, it's not a big team, right? There's just a chief technology officer, chief finance officer, a leader for the product that is being developed, a quality tester. There would be program manager looking after the development program. There could be a technical lead acting as a point of contact for technical complications, followed by a quality lead, couple of developers, few testers, and then because it's a small IT, there has to be someone to support the developers, the testers, and provide them a platform to build. Now, uh, uh, let's compare the two design models, waterfall and agile. Like I was saying, waterfall is a um, legacy method where the entire code would be first written, then tested, and then somebody is going to deliver the product into the market. And then if there's any flaw, everybody goes back to the um, drawing board again, see what happened, what went wrong, redesign, recode everything, and then deliver the product into the market. But this model was not very efficient, because to see the actual results, you had to wait for a very long time, right? So in these day, agile is what is being followed, and agile is not just about how you develop the product, but it's also about the mindset. So the whole concept about agile is, you want to develop as fast as you can, you implement it as fast as you can, and then fix the issues, redesign, redeploy, and relaunch. And if if you must have noticed, on your Android phones, you would see the updates coming up for same apps over and over within 1 week, or fortnightly basis. The updates keep on coming, and you would wonder what's going on. Why do they have to roll back so many updates over and over? And these updates are not huge, few megabytes. So what's happening is, the team might have identified some security issue. The team might have built some nice little fix, some bug resolution, and they would not wait for 1 month to give you this improvement in security, or in the overall feature, right? So that's why they keep on rolling out. So they develop something, they push it, they develop something and push it, and this keeps on happening over and over, as indicated in the diagram on the screen. So agile is all about delivering the value to the customers as soon as possible, right? So now, going back to this Contoso company, keep this in mind, right? We are going to discuss this company. So imagine it's a brilliant idea, and idea is of the essence, right? You don't want to wait for 1 year to develop something, and then come to the market. By that time, the idea might be obsolete. By that time, some competitor might have worked on this already, right? So what do the CEO of Contoso should be doing? So 9 out of 10 times, the company would go towards the cloud computing. So before we go into how Contoso would bring the value to the customers, how they would launch their product, let's see what kind of cloud computing options typically the companies have. So historically, if we go back in 90s, what was happening was, there would be one physical server, and one physical server would have one application only. And if you have 10 applications, you would have 10 servers, and then you would have people to manage those 10 servers, their networking, their security, their performance, patching, backups, everything, right? So that's how the server infrastructures were done. And when the improvement came, it was because of something called hypervisors. You might have heard of VMware and Hyper-V, or Oracle CloudBox, and similar other solutions. So in hypervisors, what happens is, okay, keep that thought aside for a minute. Now, I want you to try a random software which is having a random code, right? So if you run it on your laptop itself, you might end up damaging your machine, right? So what would you do? You could install something called Oracle, or Hyper-V or VMware solutions, and you could create a server or a virtual machine inside your own laptop, right? So that's virtualization. You are creating a machine inside a machine. So in IT, a huge revolution came when this cloud virtualization solutions came up, namely VMware and Hyper-V, right? So what companies could do is, they would buy one big server, and then they could have multiple servers or multiple machines or multiple virtual machines running inside that one box. So that is still efficient, but the company still has to maintain a lot of hardware and lot of networking. So, a private cloud means that a company would have its own hardware, and then they would manage the physical hardware as well as the virtual machine inside it, the patching of both the virtual machine as well as the physical machine that you are running, their driver updates and everything. And then companies providing a solution or a value to their other customers from where the revenue comes. So you have to keep in mind that in our example, Contoso is not an IT company. They have this brilliant idea. Let's say they are an e-commerce competition to something like Flipkart, right? So they're not an IT powerhouse, but they still have to manage a private cloud or a network themselves, even though their main goal or main revenue generator is their end product, right? So that's the disadvantage with private cloud. You still need to have a lot of IT infrastructure to manage. The next we have is something called public cloud. Um, Google Cloud, Azure, AWS, IBM. These are the the common, and even Alibaba, they are the common cloud providers that are fighting each other for the market share. So what happens in public cloud is there's a company that is saying, hey, don't worry, if you need servers to run your code, if you need database to store your data, I am going to manage all that physical infrastructure. I will give you a web portal and you could just connect and create your services. You don't have to manage all that physical appliances. And we are going to talk about public cloud in great detail today. The next up is the hybrid cloud, meaning that the company wants to use public cloud, but as well as they maintain some part of private cloud for whatever reasons. Reasons could be A, they have some legacy applications that the cloud provider does not support, and they have to maintain not 10, but 5 servers in-house. And rest they use the public cloud offering, right? So they are splitting. Um, the other reason could be they are in the process of migration, they are yet to do it, right? So hybrid cloud is where you have a split, and the company is having some of the private cloud footprint as well as some of the public cloud footprint. And it is very common these days. It is extremely common. And I have worked in one company. It was a not-for-profit organization in Sydney. They were actually, it's an interesting case. It does not happens very frequently, but what happened was there was like this not-for-profit organization. They were already running in public cloud, and
Abhijeet sir, sorry for disturbing, but some Rasmi Soni raised her hand. Rasmi, do you have any question? Rasmi Soni, do you have any question?
No, sir, by mistake.
Okay, okay. Okay, carry on, Abhijeet sir.
yep, no problem. So what I was saying was this company had all their high and all their IT infrastructure in public cloud already, and the bill was way too much because they are not for profit, right? They are charity organization, and the bill was way too much. And luckily, another company gifted them, or as a charity, they gave them their old um, hardware. So that's when these guys actually migrated back from Azure Cloud to their on-premises to reduce their cost. Um, Usually the migration is from on-premises to Azure. Um, so next up. Okay, so before we go any further, because we are going to discuss the public cloud, um, let's understand what are the key characteristics of any cloud offering, or why would you want to select the cloud. What are the benefits that you get from selecting any cloud? So before we get any further, public cloud is nothing but a service provider the benefit is you pay only for what you consume. Um, and now, because Amazon and Microsoft, they have this huge economies of scale. They are running thousands and thousands of servers. They have hundreds of data centers. They can provide the same services at way um, lesser price than you would have to buy your own server and then host an application. So in a typical IT setup, almost 50% is your hardware cost and 20% is your cost to keep that hardware running, right? Because public cloud operators, they work on humongous scales. They get the price benefit, and the customers can run the service for very cheap. And also, like I said earlier, you pay only for what you consume. So I could have a server running, but if I just run from 9 to 5 and turn it off the rest of the times, I'm not going to be paying for the rest of the times. But if you hire a staff to manage your private cloud, you still have to pay, right? So the cost is a big factor when working on a public cloud. Now, in our example of Contoso, if they have to start their product into the market, and if they go with the traditional approach, what will happen? They have to buy a physical hardware or a basic server. It costs anywhere between $10,000 to $50,000. Then they have to hire staff. They have to set up the networking, patching backups, all the routine work. Um, and then only they can start with the actual development. Now, what happens typically is when the product manager says, hey, we have to buy a new server, the process goes to finance. They work on budgets. The budgets are not approved, or they fight for the allocation of budgets. They have to ask for investors, and then let's say even if they have the budget, when they place an order for a server, let's say with Dell or IBM, it takes like 15 days for the server to come. Then they have to configure the server, and then only that physical equipment is ready to be used. And it's such a waste to wait for 10-15 days just to have something delivered to you, and then you can start the development, right? So it's not a feasible solution for our startup company called Contoso, right? Then the next option is high availability, right? Now, there's a difference between availability and high availability. So if we talk about availability, now if I were to tell you your service is going to be 90% available, right? If I were to score 90% marks, my parents would be very happy, right? 90% is quite a lot. But if you look about 90% availability in the IT, you are essentially saying that your server or service or application, it would be off for 2.5 hours every single day. So this is an e-commerce website the Contoso is developing, right? So imagine for 2.5 hours, the server or the service would not be available at 90% availability score, meaning, and this 2.5 hours could be one single slot or could be spread across the day. So whenever you're trying to place the order, service is not available, right? So not efficient, right? It won't work in today's day and age. What if I were to tell you the service would be 99.9% available? So now we are talking about high availability, but still 99.9% would mean that there would be 15 minutes of downtime every single day on an average, right? So 15.5% may work for a startup, which is okay, but may not work for a financial institution, right? There could be millions of dollars lost in transactions. Or let's say this downtime was when there was a huge sale going on at the time of Contoso launch, and nobody can place the order in those 15 minutes. So not going to work. Um, Now, the more availability you ask for in your environment, the more expensive it gets. Um, Nobody can achieve 100% availability uptime. Even Google has downtimes, but they recover pretty fast. We are not able to notice it. That's a different story, but doesn't mean that they have 100% availability. So the more reliable system you are trying to make, the more money that you have to spend. So you just have to find out a sweet balance between availability versus downtime. Okay, so next up is scaling and elasticity, and these are interconnected, meaning that now imagine Contosos having the product ready and they're going to launch to the market. They have done a huge campaigning, huge marketing has gone out, and now customers are trying to place the order. And Contoso knows that there would be huge demand on Friday evening, right? So the the key characteristics of cloud solutions is um, you can scale and you can adjust like a rubber band according to demand. And imagine in the traditional way of doing things, um, the management knows that there's going to be huge demand. So are they going to buy a separate server hardware, and then the sale was going on for 5 days, which is great. But what happens for the rest of the year? That server is not going to be used. It is just lying idle, right? So waste of money. So in cloud solutions, you are able to expand as your load increases, and you're just again going to pay only for that duration, and you when the demand is down, you can scale back, so you can scale up and scale down, right? So that is the elasticity um, factor, that is what is driving the companies to use the cloud solutions. Because when you buy the physical hardware, that server is sitting in your data center, you are using it or not, you have already paid for it, you have paid for its maintenance and support contracts as well. So they're just lying there, use it or not, right? So that's why elasticity is very much loved by the new companies. They can expand only when there is the requirement. So the next up is fault tolerance. We discussed the availability, but fault tolerance is protection against hardware failures, power outages. We had the flood in Chennai some time back, right? Um, and these things do happen. Uh, or somebody ran a bad piece of code, it's a human mistake and everything went down. The site is not available, right? So cloud solutions provide you protections from these because they have huge data centers, and they manage the fault tolerance. um, Another offering from cloud is the business continuity and disaster recovery, and they are two separate concepts, meaning that so I'd like to pause here for a minute, and I would encourage that if you find any keyword um, that you would want to have more clarity on, make a note of it. Maybe you can ask me later, or use Google. So just make a note of these buzzwords. If something is not clear to you, you may want to do a follow-up, right? So business continuity and disaster recovery, meaning that fault always happens. And let's say the fault happens for Contoso. In that case, how soon you want to recover, right? So for example, something happened to a bank. They would want to recover as soon as possible, let's say within 5 minutes, right? And in this recovery time, how much data can you lose without having an effect on your business? Meaning that if I were to tell you, hey, your business would be up and running within 5 minutes, but the copy of the data you are going to get back, it is from one day before, So because I can recover very fast from the backup copies that I took 24 hours back. So business has to decide whether this would meet their requirements or not. For some business it may work, but some businesses it may not work. So the benefit of using cloud solutions is as per the requirements of the company, the IT management can decide how much RTO and RPO they can afford and how much they can aspire for. So on the same public cloud, let's say Azure, the banks are running, the companies like TCS and other companies are running on cloud solutions definitely, and also the startups. So the requirement for a huge company and a small company would be different, but the good thing is the same public cloud can cater to the requirements for big and small companies. They just have to decide and design their solutions accordingly, right? And the last point on this slide that I missed actually is security. It came up to me very late. I could not update the presentation, but security offering is another key factor that the public cloud provide. So if Contoso is going to run their IT hardware from the back of their garage, much like Microsoft and Apple started, they still have to prevent and make sure that their physical hardware is secure. They have to make sure the server is not hacked by malicious hackers, right? So they have to make provisions for security at the physical layer, at the network layer, at the application layer, at the database layer, and they have to make provisions separately, and everything costs money, right? um, the companies cannot run free antivirus from the internet, right? They have to pay for the licenses. So all these security provisions the companies have to take, um, otherwise there's a loss of business. So now, same public cloud is providing solutions to so many customers. They have hundreds and thousands of customers, right? So the key benefit from cloud providers is that they offer advanced threat intelligence, like DDoS preventions. They can recognize some patterns. So if somebody is logging in into your company pretending to be an employee from South Africa, and if you have done some settings in your IT environment, the system would alert you, hey, I don't think somebody should be logging in from South Africa, right? So there are so many things on security layer that the cloud providers give. And most easily visible is you don't have to secure the physical hardware. There's no hardware. You're just running the company from your Google Chrome. And we'll see how. Okay, so up next. Okay, so now we are going to get a little deeper on the concepts of the cloud computing. Um, the intention of this session is not to go pretty deep into the technical concepts, but to lay a foundation that is common to all and give you guys a platform so that if you guys are interested, you can start reading about these things and see if they fit into your larger um, career goals. So in cloud computing, mostly we have infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service, which means that in the first category, you are still going to ask from the cloud provider, say, and you will say, hey, can you give me one server which is having 4 cores of CPU and 16 GB of RAM for my testing environment, right? But you are still asking for a virtual machine. You are not creating this virtual machine or this physical server, but you are going to directly go to the cloud provider and say, hey, give me a server that I can use for myself. In the second, platform as a service, you are not asking for server. Okay, so now let's say Contoso wants to actually build the application, um, and this you might be doing this in your later years in the project, that typically engineers would build. I'm sorry. So typically the engineers would build a front end and a back end. So the front end could be in anything, let's say Java, Python, C Sharp, whatever, and then there would be a database, and then you would demonstrate an application saying that when I make an entry, it is stored in the database, right? So the databases are from MS SQL or MongoDB. There are many database options. So now if imagine this, in the platform as a service, you are not even asking for a server. You are saying, just give me a database. So there's a difference. You're not even asking for a server and then install the database inside the server, but you are just saying to the cloud provider, don't worry about the virtual machine itself. Just give me a database server or any other application. So you can directly ask for the actual product that you're going to use. And I'm going to explain this in the next slide. This may not be fully clear, I get that, but just bear with me for a minute. The last offering from Cloud Solutions is software as a service, which is fairly easy. In this offering, you are saying that give me the end product. Right, and I'm not worried about how you are managing it or how you are building it. Just give me an end product that I can use, and I will pay you for it. So you all are using software as a service in one shape or the other. If you have an Outlook account, um, are you managing the Outlook or Gmail servers and then hosting your email address on top of it? No, you are using a SaaS service which is free. You might be using Dropbox or Google Drive or OneDrive from Microsoft. So Google Drive is a good example, right? You everybody has Google Drive in their phone. You can store your data onto the cloud. Where are you storing the data? The data is not on your phone, right? You are moving the data into the cloud, into the storage given to you from Google, and they are saying like 5 GB is free, and if you are going to use more, pay me $100. So let's say I actually pay for $100 and I get 1 TB of space. But what I'm doing in the process, I'm saying that, hey Google, give me a service, a storage service that I can use, and I can rent the space from you for 6 months, and then I can close it off. So let's see what they look like in the in a real life example. So here I have for you is pizza as a service. Now your goal is to consume pizza. How you do it? There are different ways to do it. Um, which method are you going to choose depends on how much money you are going to spend, and do you need any customized solutions, or do you have any preferences, and other factors, right? So if you are being very finicky, you have hundreds of customizations, you might be doing something on the left, which is called on premises. So on premises means you have the data center right in your office premises. You have a data center room, a server room, which is air cooled. So you are actually hosting some servers there. So talking about the pizza, what you do is you are building everything from the scratch. I mean everything. You are going to arrange for making the pizza dough, the stove, the fire, all the nice little toppings that you want. You're going to make your own tomato sauce and everything, right? uh, the next solution you could do is you could go to the store, buy the ready-made pizza base, buy the toppings as well. You get the cheese, and you are actually not building everything, but you are assembling stuff, right? So what you're doing is you are getting some ingredients, and then at the comfort of your home, you are preparing the pizza as per your choices. You still have some customizations. You are still managing it and you're still doing the customizations, but you are not building everything from the scratch. You are buying some of the stuff that is already pre-made for you. Then we have pass, meaning that you just want to have pizza at the comfort of your choice, right? Whatever location. So what you do is you call Domino's, you get the pizza, um, and you still arrange for the location, the dining table, what drinks you are going to have. You're still arranging some experience, but you still have the control. But there you cannot define or specify how the pizza is made. That process is managed by the pizza service provider, right? And at the last you have the SaaS offering, which means you just go to the store and have the pizza in the store itself. So you are going to adjust on the sitting comfort. The seats may not be available. You are going to get whatever drinks that are available on the menu. You cannot have your own drinks, right? So but you are just paying for the pizza and not worried about managing all the store or anything, or running the pizza shop, right? So now how are you deciding is dependent on the factors like how much time you have, how much customizations you can make, and what's the end product that you are going to look at. Now, if I was to use the same analogy and relate it to the IT, here's the IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS offerings for you. So in the left hand side is the private cloud, or you can say on premises, or the traditional way of doing things. So as you can see on the screen, you are managing everything end to end. So you are going to manage the networking, the storage, servers, patching on the servers, the drivers, the data security, the data itself, and the application. You are assembling everything from the scratch, and then delivering the value to the customer. So your customer does not care about how good networking or storage do you have. Your customer is only worried about the top layer, which is the application. So it's sort of the OSI and the TCP/IP layers that you are going to read in the networking, but the customer is going to consume the top layer, which is the application layer. The interface is good, the application is smooth, good, I will place the order. That's it, right? How you deliver it, that's not customer's problem. Now, in the IaaS, or infrastructure as a service offering, um, you are outsourcing some of the work and headache to the service provider, and you say, hey, you manage the storage, networking, and the virtualization. Just give me a virtual machine where I can store my own Windows or Linux or Ubuntu or whatever image I want, and I will manage the patching inside it, and I will manage my application and my data. In the next thing you have is you are only worried about the data and the application, and rest everything is managed by the cloud provider. In this offering, you are going to worry about the actual code for your application. So this is a e-commerce company, right? So how the interface would be, where would be the cart button, where would be the buy now, and all the other features. You are going to develop the code for it, and how you're going to store that customer data and order processing. But OS, and how many servers and what servers, you are not worried about that. Um, and we have spoken about in great detail the SaaS offering. Um, Google Drive, OneDrive are the typical examples. You are not developing anything, you are just consuming and actually renting out whatever service you want. So a good example for PaaS is the WordPress website. So you might have seen some bloggers writing their own blogs, the personal diaries, or the technical documentation, technical blogs as well. So they go to the WordPress and then they develop whatever content they want. And it's a platform given by WordPress to create your own free websites. So this is pretty much the kind of cloud storage and the cloud offerings available in general. Now,
Abhijeet,
um,
one question
For
in our chat box. One question in our chat box by Rasmi Soni. If you could you please answer it?
yeah, one moment. Okay, so the question is, what platform does Google provide in cloud computing? So the answer would be all of the above. It really depends on what your requirement is. As far as I know, Google has something called GCP or Google Cloud, Google Cloud Platform, and it has the same offerings. Whatever you want to build, you can build the IaaS solutions, you can build the SaaS. Google Docs and other readily available services are still SaaS services, but if you want to customize anything, you can easily build your solutions on SaaS. So it should be like, if I were to answer it, it would be like all of the above. I hope it answers your question, Rashmi.
Rasmi,
Rasmi,
got your question answered. Rasmi.
I think if you have any query, then you can ask directly to Abhijeet sir.
I guess
Okay.
there's no
Yes,
follow-up
yes,
question.
yes, yes.
Moving on. So now let me discuss um, Microsoft Cloud in particular. That's where I have worked extensively. So Microsoft started um, their cloud offering in 2010, I believe. And since then, it has been capturing the market share year on year. Um, so uh, as of today, Microsoft is available worldwide in 65 plus regions, and their actual data centers are in the 200 plus locations, and this number keeps on increasing, every year. So because I spent some time working in Microsoft, the data centers of Microsoft themselves, it kind of caught my interest. And then I spent some time reading on that. But luckily, Microsoft over the years has released so much information about their own data centers. And it's really fascinating on how they are doing things on the massive scale. So on the screen, what you see is the different generations of data centers Microsoft has built over the years. Every cloud provider is doing things differently, but they are pretty much doing the same thing. It's just a matter of execution that different companies have chosen. But these cloud data centers, they are size of several football fields, and they host literally thousands of servers under one shed. Um, Particularly if you look at the bottom right corner, Microsoft has been building the sealed data centers that they submerge into the sea or ocean. It is an interesting project. The project name is Natic. You might want to look it up. I will drop some reference links in the chat towards the end of the session. So the project Natic uh, was designed, and the idea was to explore how efficient the data centers could be.
Rashmi, sorry, Rashmi, you want to say something? Hello, that's me. I think there will be some interruption. Okay,
Yeah.
so continue, please.
So under Project Natick, in 2015, Microsoft developed a smaller prototype. They submerged into the ocean, and it was an actual data center. Um, and it had the capacity of 300 computers, and then they took it out after 100 days, and that's how the project got started. But in June 2018, this is a bigger vessel that you see on the screen. It's a 40 feet long container. So Microsoft developed this container, and they put the dried nitrogen inside this data center, and then they submerged this for um, 2 years. So this data center had the capacity of close to 900 actual servers, right? And then they took it out after 2 years and found that these data centers, the ocean-based data centers, they are 8 times more reliable than the data centers in our offices, because this was using nitrogen as the air, but on the land we have oxygen, which does oxidizes different components and different hardwares fail. So this was taken out last year in July 2020, and Microsoft has published their initial findings. The detailed findings are yet to be released. So this is just to show you what kind of innovations are happening in the data center and the cloud computing space. We sometimes do not realize what's happening behind the scenes, because so much is hidden away from us because of the PaaS and SaaS offerings that we consume on day-to-day basis. But somebody has to build these solutions and support these solutions, right? So it can be you. So this is a picture where it was taken out. Um, and another interesting feature about all the cloud providers is what they do is something called dark fiber, or um, their internal networking. So let's say if I have a server running and it's for the research purpose, and I want somebody to access my server, let's say in Canada, I'm in Australia, right? Now if I give my server a public IP, the other user is going to access my server over the public internet. Somebody could do a man in the middle attack. They would try to decipher the information, and let's say this is super serious, super critical, confidential data. Um, it has to go through the internet service provider and then go to other internet service provider and follow the fiber or the physical network of other companies. But typically companies would not want to expose their data over the public internet. So the cloud providers, they lay their own physical network, and this is fully controlled and operated by Microsoft in this case. And they lay down the physical network for two purposes. One is their own inter domain controllers and inter data center communications, as well as if the customer does not wants to expose anything to the internet, all the communication remains private, and it never leaves out the network of your cloud provider. Um, so now in this next section, I'm just going to leave you with some goodie points, and get you interested on why you should be exploring the cloud opportunities. So first thing first, um, all the companies in one way or the other, they are going to consume cloud products or go to the cloud in some way or the other, especially in this pandemic, when you see that initially there was some disturbance in the IT sector, and then everything is going on pretty much business as usual, because all of the IT staff is now working from home, and it's manageable, pretty frankly. Now imagine this. Um, let's say there was no cloud, right? And all these companies, they had their data centers in their own offices. So somebody has to go out and actually um, manage the physical data center, right? There are all sort of problems that happen in the data center. The cooling units, they stop to work, and your physical hardware, it actually gets fire. um, or there could be some Ethernet port that stopped working, some cable went wrong, and you just have to go and plug in the new cable. Simple things like these, they happen all the time. So if there was no cloud, somebody would still have to go into the physical data center and manage these day-to-day operations. But what most companies did was they already had some sort of cloud arrangement. If they did not, they actually got in touch with cloud service providers and got um, some of the uh, cloud solutions, like Zoom, right? Now everybody is using Zoom and other similar offerings, and conducting business. And yeah, it's a good example for software as a service, because we use sometimes the free versions, but in bigger conferences and other enterprise grade solutions, these companies actually charge the companies for their solutions to be used. I'm sorry. Yeah. So as you can see on the graph, um, even after the pandemic, the consumption of the cloud offerings has never stopped. It actually has upward trend, and it will continue to go up. Year on year, there is a stable growth in the cloud IT industry, which means if there's more money coming in, there's more innovation and more jobs in the sector. Um, this is a chart to indicate the skills required in the IT sector in the cloud solutions, and their steep upward trend after 2016 onwards. And here are the companies fighting for the market share. The light blue is Microsoft, and you can see its current market share is 22%, but it has been still growing over the years, and this data is still 2019. I was not able to find something that puts all the cloud providers on a single slide, so I had to make peace with this one. But still, it's good enough to show you that AWS has a huge market share. The next competitor is Microsoft, and the other cloud providers are very negligible in the picture. But still, every cloud provider is sort of growing in their business. So now, before I go and discuss the next slide, I want to share an observation. In my days of graduation, uh, the IT graduates only had the goal of being a developer, right? And everybody would be either doing Java or .NET at that time. But everybody wanted to be a developer. And then there were some guys who would say, hey, I'm not good at programming. What would I do? So I want to discuss the other opportunities apart from being a software developer. Um, you could be a network engineer, right? You just have to figure out how to get started, and what subjects that you would want to, get a little more advanced knowledge on. So if software development is your key interest area, it is still great. But uh, in our example as Contoso, let's say there are only two developers, right? And if you remember the concepts of object-oriented programming, everything is developed into the modules, right? Now, no longer it is a case where there are 10,000 pieces of lines of code and one person is writing them. Everything is split apart into different different modules. So one developer is working on one piece of code, the other developer is working on the other one. And what if one developer leaves the company or the laptop gets broken? You are going to lose your piece of code, right? So what happens is, uh, even in the development, you have to embrace the concepts of cloud, meaning your code has to be stored in somewhere in the cloud, like GitHub, right? So cloud is going to touch upon every aspects of your upcoming careers. So I give you example of software development. Then even if you're a network guy, you would have to do cloud networking. Um, if you are a server engineer like me, you have to work day in day out on the cloud. Uh, um, and then security is a upcoming sector, and it's highly paid sector in the cloud security. So you may want to explore the ways to get into that. But the point is, you don't have to focus you only and on the networking. Oh, sorry, you don't have to focus only being on the developer. There are so many other avenues for you to get into the IT right after your graduation. So but to be able to crack a job, you still would have to stick to the fundamentals and understand the current subjects, because they all lay a solid foundation, and you are going to apply the advanced concepts of all these subjects. You would still have to focus on networking and some bit of programming, um, because you might not be doing networking day in and day out, but believe me, in some way or other, you are going to touch upon the networking. Um, so to be able to be job ready, you have to do some projects, no longer building that monolithic piece of codes of front end and back end and just showing that there's a data entry in the code. Try to come up with the better projects, real life examples, do some hands-on experience, and build some labs. All the cloud providers, they offer you some sort of free labs that you can explore. Try to get certifications. Most of the certifications are free for the students. So try to get as many certifications as possible. They are very easy to acquire, and the certifications are really focused. So you don't have to spend an entire semester. Just 3-4 weeks of preparation could help you to earn some certifications, and there could be real advantage on your resume when you are going out for the job. Because again, let's say you are going to be hired for a developer job, but if you have some cloud certificate, it would be really admired. Um, Check out the websites and the documentation from the vendors like AWS, Amazon, and Google. They would really help to explain the concept. There are hundreds of videos available. There are great YouTube channels that go into the detail of each and every topic, be it development, be it server, networking, whatever. The resources are available. So you have to, you know, understand the fundamentals, but also take those concepts to the next level, and then present them in a digestible fashion. So you can't just learn the fundamentals of network but do not know anything about the routing. So you might want to do an actual lab of routing in your mini setup. um, the last thing is resume. It does not have to be a traditional Word or PDF resume. Why don't you go and build an actual website with your name, and that website is hosted on some cloud provider, and why not just include that website as a bold highlight of your resume, saying that this is the project that I have built for myself. Check my resume on this website. I have developed the front end in this language, and this is my backend. Or explain some technicalities to demonstrate that you are able to do a mini piece of work on your own. Lastly, if I were to summarize my career over the years, it would be do not be afraid to take the risks. Yes, it seems scary to try something new, but do not hesitate. Always raise your hand up. Don't worry that you may get failures or rejections. That is part and parcel of the life and the career as well. But if you do not try something new, you are not learning. And the next extension of the same point is do not get comfortable on the same role or same product for too long, because IT is one sector that keeps on developing. And if you are restricting yourself to one certain product, you are losing out the innovations that are happening in the other areas, right? So if you are the most technically advanced engineer in your team, you might be looking for the next challenge, because you don't want to get comfortable in the same role for quite too long. The next is always look out to renew your certifications. Uh, by that, you actually uh, do a quick revision or quick refresher course of whatever new has happened. So do not just get one certificate and then just sit on it for a very long time, because innovations are happening, right? So you are missing on the delta. So whatever new has come up, when you renew your certificate as a part of preparation, you are going to learn that concept. um, Take the shortcuts. And I'm not saying that in a negative way, but I'm saying it in a way that you come up with a nice innovative smart solutions. Don't be a hard worker, be a smart worker. There is always a better way to do certain things. Do not assume that your piece of code is the best, your presentation is the best. There's always a smarter and better way and efficient way to do things. The companies are looking to get maximum profit at lowest cost, so try to optimize things and get better solutions in whatever area of IT you are in. And the lastly, it would be create your own network. Do not burn the bridges. um, have good connections, um, because IT is a big field, but as well as it's a small field. Everybody is connected to everybody. The world travels fast, so you want to have the good network. And sometimes the inside jobs you are only going to get by the referral from your friend or your previous manager that got a promotion in some other company, and then he remembers you. Hey, that guy was a good engineer. Let me bring him into my company. So you want to have good professional relationships with everybody. um, so
Abhijeet sir, one student has asked your LinkedIn ID.
yep, I'll drop that ID in the chat. 1 second. So just to conclude there, build your network, help each other. You are going to get references and some nice jobs, maybe some help in the interview, some help in the shortlisting of your profile, and all these things matter a lot. So always look out for your friends. You always grow together, not as an individual. Work in a team. So that would be the last point that I would like to make here.